I'm Melissa Joles with RDA Impact. Tony Nethery, owner of Blue Collar Consulting and Training, is your presenter today. The presentation will take approximately 45 minutes, and we are recording the presentation and we'll post it on our website under training videos. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, and I'll give them to Tony as I receive them during the presentation. And there are no bad questions, so feel free to ask anything. Tony, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And as she said, today's seminar is on aluminum and your return on investment and what it takes to actually make money with doing aluminum repair today. So that's kind of what we're going to dive into. And for my introduction, my name again is Tony Nethery, and I've got about 36 going on 40 years of industry experience, and I started out as a technician, and I've managed body shops. I've worked for a paint distributor, and I have also worked for an equipment supplier in selling equipment. As a result of the introduction of the new 2004 F-150 back the middle of last year, when everything kind of came on the scene in the industry, at that point in time, I was actually selling equipment. And because of my position at that time selling equipment, I actually had the opportunity to work very closely with Ford, and I worked with 3 of their field service engineers that covered a large portion of the southeastern part of the United States. And I worked very closely with field service engineers. And I'm also an ICAR instructor, and I do the Ford training for ICAR. So between the two, between doing the training and then working with field service engineers and selling equipment, I have a pretty good grasp on what is absolutely required, and I also have a pretty good understanding of the training requirements. And with my past as a manager of a collision repair facility, I understand the challenges of actually making money doing aluminum repair. So that's kind of what we're going to look at today. And going from there, today's aluminum topics, we're going to look at an introduction of what is required, an initial investment, and what that's going to cost you in certification, training, and equipment. We're also going to look at your return on investment calculations. We're going to actually kind of do the math and what you might need to do to figure out what your return on investment needs to be. And we're also going to look at some insurer trends and some kind of trends that we're seeing with labor rates, and we will have opportunities for question and answers along the way. And so I guess the big question would be, why aluminum? Why are we turning to aluminum repair? Of course, this has been driven by the CAFE standards, or the corporate average fuel efficiency requirements that the manufacturers are required to meet. And the standard that they're attempting to meet is their corporate average for their fleet has to be, by 2025, 55.4 miles per gallon. And the only way to achieve that is more efficient engines and to lighten the vehicle, and so that's why they're turning to aluminum. Also, aluminum is very recyclable, and we have more access to the ores to make aluminum than any other product. So it is a natural fit for the automotive industry. And because of that, I do not see it as a fad. I do see it as something that we will see more and more of over the next 5 to 10 years. Can't be certain that every vehicle manufacturer is going to go to aluminum. There will probably be some that will not have to. But a large portion of our industry is probably going to work its way toward aluminum repair. And with that, we'll take a quick look at some of the other manufacturers that are using aluminum besides Ford. BMW has had aluminum-intensive vehicles for quite some time. Land Rover has had some aluminum-intensive vehicles since 2012, I believe. Infiniti and Nissan are using some aluminum. Cadillac is using some aluminum. There are other manufacturers. You have Audi and some others as well. So when we look at this today, obviously the 2015 Ford F-150 is what's driving all of the industry stir that we see today. But there are multiple manufacturers that are turning to aluminum. And as a result of that, I think it's something that as a shop owner you have to consider when you're, I don't think it's a matter of if you're going to make the leap. I think at some point you'll have to. It's just a matter of when you make the leap into aluminum repair. And you know, and probably every collision repair facility may already be doing some aluminum repair on cars that have aluminum hoods and deck lids. But we're talking about more than just aluminum hoods and deck lids. We're talking about aluminum-intensive vehicles. So that brings us down to certification and approval. And every manufacturer has processes that they expect you to go through to be certified or an approved repair center for their particular vehicles. And so what we're looking at today primarily is the Ford F-150 and what's required. You can only truly be certified if you are a Ford dealer collision repair shop. Independent shops can be approved by Ford. The requirements are virtually the same. The equipment requirements are virtually the same. And whether you're a Ford dealer or an approved independent shop, you will be listed on Ford's website based on your zip code as either a certified or approved shop. So, excuse me, when you look at dealers versus the independents, there are approximately 4,000 Ford dealers in the United States out of 40,000, roughly 40,000 body shops in the United States. There are only 4,000 Ford dealers that have collision repair centers, and less than 1,000 of those became certified, because just because you're a Ford dealer does not and have a collision shop does not automatically make you certified. They had to go through the same processes that an independent is having to go through. And so as a result, out of the 4,000, roughly a little less than 1,000 at this point have become certified. And so when you look at this new 2015 F-150, #1 selling vehicle in the United States, and there's only 1,000 dealers that are prepared to repair that truck, that leaves a tremendous amount of those repairs that will be done in an independent shop. And so the question is it necessary for me to have certification? Or is it necessary for me to have approval? You know, we live in the United States, and there's not a whole lot of laws that govern collision repair shops in the United States. Can I repair a truck without having certification or approval? Absolutely. Just like we've been able to repair other vehicles without being certified or having approval by other manufacturers. And it will be no different on this truck. I can repair the truck. But the reality is, when you look at the repair processes on the truck, it's not just that you might want to buy this equipment. It's really going to be impossible to repair this truck without the necessary tools and equipment and without the necessary training. And so if I'm going to purchase the tools and the equipment, and I'm going to purchase and I'm going to pay for the training, I really don't understand why anyone would want to do that and not have the advantage of being able to market their business or their facility as a certified or an approved shop. So do you have to? No, absolutely not. And I can buy part of the tools and equipment. I can put someone through training. You do not have to be approved or certified or in that process to get the training. So I can do it, but by the time you buy just the necessary tools and equipment that you're going to have, I think you probably would be better off to go ahead and buy the few other pieces that you need and take advantage of the marketing. So let's look at the initial investment and what it costs. And the one thing that I have learned through the Ford program and through the field service engineers and through ICAR and all of the other organizations that are a part of this, what I've learned is that there are a lot of people that have a lot of varying opinions, and there's a lot of argument and discussion about what you have to have and what you do not have to have. And I have done inspections for Assured Performance Network, which is the certifying body for independent shops. And I am an ICAR instructor, so I have done extensive amounts of the Ford training, and I have worked for field service engineers. And so I am fairly confident that I'm giving you good information. When we talk about pricing and we talk about pricing on tools and equipment, it does vary depending on what part of the country you're in. But the prices that I'm going to give you are fairly accurate, at least for the eastern part of the United States. And if you, you know, I'm not saying that you won't see some fluctuation in the prices that I'm going to give you. And I am giving you ballpark pricing. I am not, you know, it could fluctuate $500 plus or minus on a $10,000 piece of equipment. So just keep in mind that I'm not giving you hard prices. These are estimated prices, but they are fairly accurate. So the first thing that you would look at would be the certification or the approval fees. And again, I said you do that through Assured Performance. And the certification fees or the administrative fees through Assured Performance, depending on which vehicles that you want to receive approval for, and Assured Performance does General Motors, Chrysler, they do the Ford, and then they also do Nissan and Infiniti, as well as Fiat, I think, and a couple of other programs. If you do the total package, you're looking at probably an initial investment for the first year of roughly $5,000 to go through the Assured Performance program. When you look at training, all of the Ford training is provided by ICAR. There is not anyone else that you can get the training from. There is nowhere else that you can get the training. It is $1,000 roughly per technician. That $1,000 is going to include going through the Ford, the FOR 06 class, which is the required class by Ford. It is a 6-hour, usually scheduled 8-hour course. And then on top of that, you have the welding certification. And the welding certification is usually around $700. So by the time you do the class, roughly $300, and the welding certification, you're looking at approximately $1,000 per tech. Most shops will probably want to train 2 techs so that they have a backup in case, you know, one tech is not available, or if the tech is, you know, if you lose a technician, then you still have a backup plan. If you have a large facility, you may want to train more than that. So, but you can basically look at it as $1,000 per tech. Looking at the equipment, probably if you go with the least expensive equipment and you stay with just the bare necessities that's required, you're looking at $35,000, and that could go up to, you know, $200,000 or more, depending on what you want to do with your shop. But the required pieces would be the self-piercing rivet gun, the welder, repair station, the vacuum system, and a hand tool kit. We're going to look at those one at a time, but those are the initial investment. Those are the required pieces. So the first one, and the first piece of equipment that I recommend that most shops buy, there are over 2,000 rivets, self-piercing rivets, in a new F-150. And because of that, it's going to be virtually impossible to do any repairs with the exception of bolting a hood, fender, or door on. The rest of the body of the truck is put together with self-piercing rivets. There are 3 companies that are making the self-piercing rivet gun that Ford has approved, and that would be Henrob and ProSpot. And then Electron, my understanding is we'll be releasing one later this month or sometime around the 1st of next month. Theirs is a pneumatic gun, and I've been told that it will be approved by some other manufacturers besides Ford, possibly Jaguar, Audi, BMW. The Henrob and the ProSpot, the model that we see in the picture there is the ProSpot, and it's the one that Ford has approved today. You can expect to spend somewhere between $7,900 and $8,200 on the self-piercing rivet gun. It is 18 volt, and it does come with a charger and backup batteries and case and that type of thing. The next piece of equipment would be dent repair station in order to be able to do repairs on fenders and bedsides and doors and that type of thing. The dent repair station is a required tool. You have 4 companies that Ford has approved, And we're not endorsing any one company. We're just giving you some samples with the pictures of what you might expect to see. Carliner makes one, DentFix makes one, Electron makes one, and ProSpot has one. The least expensive of the systems is approximately $6,000, and the more expensive of the system is closer to $9,000. The biggest difference is the $9,000 one has a few more tools and a few more attachments than the less expensive one. But any of those four would actually meet the criteria. The next piece, this is one that people seem to have a little trouble swallowing, is a vacuum system. Because aluminum dust can be explosive, and because it will contaminate steel vehicles, they do recommend that you have a wet mix vacuum system. They do require it, actually, not recommended, they require it. And the reason that Ford required this is because it keeps you EPA compliant. And so there are multiple companies out there that are making one of these systems, but the most common is Eurovac. And I have looked at one that was built by Dynabrade that partnered with Carborundum, and they're building one that my understanding has been approved. When the Ford program initially started, when the dealers were in the process of purchasing their equipment, the only one that was approved at the time was the Eurovac. It does have explosion-proof motors. It comes with a couple of sanders and attachments, and you can expect to spend somewhere between $8,500 to $10,000 on the wet mix vacuum system. The next piece that you would need to look at would be a 220-volt pulse synergic spray welder. There are three companies that Ford has approved. That would be Carliner, Electron, and ProSpot. The welder has to be capable of using AA 5554 alloy wire, which is a 1.2 diameter wire. You will use 100% argon, or what we call 4.6, which means it's 99.996% pure. The one that we have pictured in the welder has multiple guns and will do multiple metals. You can buy one as low as $4,500. That particular welder will only weld aluminum. When you go to the more expensive welders, and you can spend up to $12,000, but when you go to the more expensive welders, some of those do multiple metals. A lot of them will do aluminum, and because you use 100% argon to do silicon bronze as well, or MIG brazing, you can get a machine that will do the aluminum, the MIG brazing, and do steel. And when you look at the more expensive machines, it is a little bigger investment, but at the same time, like I say, you might be able to do multiple metals. And some other manufacturers are requiring MIG brazing, such as Toyota, Honda, and GM. So if you're looking at the welder, it may be worthwhile to look at one that will do multiple metals. Some of the other essential equipment would be a hand tool kit. And oddly enough, I would have thought that would have been something that would be very easy to find a picture of. And I have some that I've snapped myself in the shop, but I wasn't able to find any that we could put in the presentation. But the hand tool kit, you can assemble that yourself, or you can buy it through Rotunda, and some of your equipment distributors now have availability to get that hand tool kit. It contains over 30 hand tools that are designed especially to take care of the repairs on the Ford F-150. You will spend somewhere between $3,500 if you assemble the tool kit yourself, or you can buy one in that price range if you do not get a toolbox. It comes, you can get it, the one that you order through Rotunda has a roll-around toolbox, has all the necessary tools in the box, and that one is probably closer to $4,500. So those are your options there. You also have to have a separate work area. This can just be something as simple as a curtain. You can curtain off a corner of your shop, or a curtain off one stall, or you may have some separate stalls that are isolated in your shop that you can use to have the separate work area. The idea is that I'm trying to isolate an aluminum vehicle from the rest of the vehicles in the shop that might be steel, because the dust will cross-contaminate from one to the other. Simple curtain you might buy, you might be able to purchase that for as little as $2,000, or you can spend into the hundreds of thousands of dollars by adding on to your business and building a separate work area. So that really is just depends on what you want to do and to what level that you want to go. One of the misconceptions that I get is some people are hesitant to curtain off an area in their facility because they feel like that's going to be dead space when they do not have an aluminum intensive vehicle to repair. Ford says in the ICAR class that Ford put and worked with ICAR to put together, they say that area can be used for other types of repairs. It just has to be cleaned prior to doing an aluminum vehicle. So you would just want to make sure that you get, that you vacuum the area good or wash it out so that it is good and clean when you go from a steel vehicle to an aluminum vehicle or vice versa. So it is not really a loss of shop space if you simply put a curtain up. Some optional equipment would be holding and pulling and measuring equipment. Today for Ford, that is optional. I've been told by some field service engineers with Ford that that's probably going to be a mandatory piece of equipment in the very near future for the dealers. Because Assured Performance does certify you for General Motors and Chrysler and some of the other manufacturers, if you're doing your certification as an independent through Assured Performance, you will already have to have some type of pulling equipment that is capable of simultaneous pulls or multiple pulls at one time. And you would also have to have a three-dimensional measuring system. The two companies that Ford has approved on this equipment is Chief Easyliner and Caroliner. That's not to say that you could not use another brand or another company, but those are the two that Ford has worked with and have currently approved. But like I say, that is optional equipment right now. So you could spend anywhere from $3,000 for just a simple board that has just the attachments you need to secure the cab on the F-150, or you can spend into the thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, if you put in a full pulling and measuring system. So when we look at the initial investment, we have $5,000 in certification fees, training $1,000 per tech. Equipment could be $40,000 and up. So, we could be looking, if you just take the average of all of those pieces of equipment, you could be looking at an initial investment of, let's just say, $43,100. And that's just kind of taking an average of everything. So how do we recoup that $43,000? How do we guarantee that that's not a wasted investment? And so if we look at the insurers and we start to look at labor rates, and we're going to be careful here and make sure we stay in compliance with antitrust laws, but there are some current trends. I am hearing things from various insurers, and I have talked to a lot of insurers. And we're going to kind of look at the future outlook and what you may need to do, and then the things that you can start doing now. And so, you might have seen the labor rate chart that said if you watch us, it's $55 an hour, and if you give us advice, it's $65, and if you help, it's $85, and if you've ever worked on it, it's $105. That is a comical statement, but that's kind of the way we're feeling right now with this aluminum thing. We really have no idea whether we can make the investment because we do not know how insurers are going to approach rates and how they pay us. And so right now it really is an uncertain time in our industry. But I do think there are some realities, and some of the things that I'm hearing, some of the insurance trends that I hear, some insurers are approaching it that, well, we've been repairing aluminum hoods and deck lids. We've been repairing aluminum for a long time. It's really not that different. So we understand you had to buy some equipment, so let's just add a percentage maybe to the repair times. If it was a 4-unit repair time in the past, we'll give you 6 now. So, they're throwing out possibilities of giving additional repair times. I've also heard some insurers say, well, if the three estimating softwares, the three big ones, Autotex, Mitchell, and CCC, if they do time studies and they determine what the time should be, why should there be any adjustment at all? And then there are some that feel like that because of the difference in the type of repairs, the additional training, the additional tools, the additional equipment, maybe there should be an aluminum intensive vehicle rate, and that rate might be different than what your normal rates are. So there's three different thought processes that I'm hearing right now. I want to take a look at some of those and some things that you might need to think about. If you're going to adjust your rates, it has to be a process. You might work with someone that does like the variable rate system. The insurers that you work with may have a metrics that you can put your numbers in to give them an idea of what kind of rates that you're looking at. There are multiple systems out there, but the one thing that you have to understand is your rates and your numbers and how many vehicles you repair and what your average RO is. We're going to kind of work through the math and look at it that way. Then some other things that you want to think about is all the add-ons that you may need to do with the aluminum repair, the additional adhesives, the additional rivets, the additional consumables that come doing the aluminum intensive repair. So those are things that we look at as well. And my suggestion would be that you look at all those things in the process of determining what your rates need to be. So let's run through some numbers and decide, is this a good investment or not? And, first of all, you do have to know your numbers. You have to know what your average RO is, about how many new model pickups that you repaired last year, because you can expect it to be somewhat close to that this year. What you need to accomplish to break even, and then what kind of margins that you need to make or want to make. And so when we do the calculations, if we use that $43,100 that we came up with long ago, and we look at trying to recoup that investment over 5 years, that's about $8,600 a year. You have to look at how many new late model trucks repaired last year. But if I look at that, if I have one aluminum vehicle per month, that's typically what I've repaired, I would need to generate $719 over what my average RO has been. Last year in the United States, an average RO across the country was somewhere between $2,300, $2,400 and $3,000. It does vary in different parts of the country, but let's just take an average RO of $2,500. To generate an additional $719 is a 29% increase. But that would be over the entire RO. And so if we look at it from the standpoint of we're just going to add some labor, then 40%, if 40% of that $2,500 RO is labor, then we're looking at $1,000. That's a 72% increase that we would have to have. And if we look at just adding repair time, of the 40% of the RO that's labor, only 30% of that might be repair labor. So if we're looking at just repair time, that might be $300 that we're looking at versus $2,500. That would be a 240% increase. So when you look at it of just adding, say, 25% to your repair times, you will never pay for this equipment. It is no way to accomplish profitability by adding a little repair time. Because if I'm only changing my rate or my time based on repair times on the estimate, that is a very small portion of most estimates. And so, again, it would take 240% increase, not a 25 or 30% increase. So if I look at it from the standpoint of adding 40% or if I look at it of adding a percentage to everything that's labor, not just repair time, but everything that's labor, then I need about a 72% increase to break even over the next 5 years. And that's to break even. And obviously no one stays in business breaking even. So the reality, my answer, if I'm looking at it realistically, is that if you are currently profitable, you may need to increase your rate on aluminum-intensive vehicles by 100% to actually recognize a profit and recoup your investment over the next 5 years. Now, that's if I'm repairing one vehicle a month, and that is if I'm already profitable, and that is if my average RO is about $2,500. And so, in order for you to figure out what you need to increase your rate, it's math. It's not complicated. It's just math. And you can figure that out by working through your numbers, and you can determine what percentage your rates will have to increase. And so I think that's probably what you need to do. And my suggestion is to build an aluminum intensive vehicle profile in your system. You have the capability in all of your estimating software, whether you're using CCC or whether you're using Mitchell or whether you're using Autotex, you have the ability to build profiles for your insurers, or you can have a profile for your customer pay customers. And if I was in that position today, I would build an aluminum intensive profile to look at all of the factors and all of my rates, and I would determine what my rates need to be. I would build an aluminum intensive vehicle profile. And the reality is, is it realistic to think that you can add 100% to your labor rates? I have talked to multiple insurers, and through doing the Ford class, I think the opportunity that you have today as a shop is that the insurers are looking at this, and they are open. The larger insurers in the United States have all committed to having their estimators and adjusters to go through the training. So they are very aware of what it requires and what has to be done. And I think they're reasonably open today to developing an aluminum intensive rate. Now they're not going to do it for you, and they're not going to give it to you without you asking. But I do think that a larger portion of the insurers realize that this may require a higher rate. Now, whether or not you can negotiate a 100% increase, I'm not sure. But I am certain of this. You will have to go through the process. You will have to go through the certification and the approval and have the required equipment if you hope to achieve that. And so I really do think it's an issue of commitment. I think you have to decide if this is something I can commit to. And reality is, I think this year may be a bumpy ride. But I truly believe you have two options. You can buy one or two pieces of equipment, and you can struggle through some repairs, and you may be able to repair the vehicle correctly. You may not. But you may be able to get it repaired and get paid. But I think if you really want to have an aluminum intensive rate, you have to make a commitment to it. You have to be able to make the investment, even if it's the minimum investment. You make that investment so that you can market yourself as an approved or a certified repair facility. And then I think at that point you do have the opportunity today to go ahead and develop that aluminum intensive rate. And I think you have to look beyond just the Ford F-150, and I know that's what's driving a lot of this today, but I think you have to look beyond the Ford F-150 and realize that General Motors is talking about doing an aluminum intensive truck in the very near future. Ford's talking about doing one of their cars as an aluminum intensive vehicle. you have the BMWs, you have Audi, you have Jaguar, Range Rover, and I think you have to get the necessary equipment to go out and market yourself as having the ability to do aluminum repair so that you can get that 1 a month or 2 a month and maybe even 3 a month. And at that point, you know, once you've marketed yourself and have that level of work in your shop, then it may be easier to achieve this. So those are my thoughts. I've got my contact information there. I know sometimes discussing things like this is a little sensitive, and I will always try to stay within the antitrust laws and be politically correct, but sometimes people do feel a little more comfortable talking to you one-on-one, and if that's the case, feel free to call me anytime. That is my cell phone number, and I answer it unless I'm in the middle of a meeting or a webinar with a customer, and would be glad to talk to anyone that wants to discuss this. You can email me at that email address, and besides working with doing ICAR training and working with equipment and doing webinars and things like this today, I also work with shops on ocean EPA assistance. I do some estimating and sales training, help some shops develop some marketing, social media planning. I do a lot of production process improvement with training with shops, and then do a tremendous amount of training and training planning. Some shops just need help figuring out how to put a training plan together for their shop, and that really does depend on what you're trying to accomplish. And then also I have worked with some distributors and worked with shops on materials management. And if I can help you with any of those things, feel free to give me a call, or if you'd like to discuss this today further, feel free to give me a call. And
Tony,
if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
Okay. Tony, we have one.
Okay.
The material collected
recycled. You could spread it out on a tarp, or just put it in a bucket and let it sit there till the water evaporates out of it, and you're going to have kind of a hockey puck, if you will, at that point. You could actually carry that and recycle it. It's recyclable aluminum. It's not toxic, and it's not hazardous. So the only reason you have to have that wet mix vacuum system is because you're trying to get it out of the air. And once it's out of the air and it's in, it's in a solid state or a semi-solid state like that, it's not a hazardous material. It's just aluminum dust. So you could actually recycle it, or dispose of it in a dumpster for that matter.
Does anybody else have questions? We'll give them a second to type them in. Sometimes it takes.
Okay.
And I will follow up by sending everybody on the webinar Tony's information. I will email that to you. And we, again, did record it, so in the next day or so you can either go to our website or go to YouTube videos and put in RDA/impact, and you can view it there as well. I don't see any other questions. They do appreciate the answers to the last question. Debbie said thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, you did a great job. You're so thorough. Oh, we have a question. Okay. If the industry knew about the aluminum vehicles, if the industry knew about the aluminum vehicles were in production, how come the estimating program did not create a profile?
I wish I could answer that for you. I've attended NACE and SEMA, as well as other industry meetings for the last couple of years, and there has been talk of aluminum intensive vehicles. That's been a topic on the horizon for probably 2 years now, and all of the tool and equipment manufacturers and everyone else has been buzzing about the aluminum intensive vehicle, and for whatever reason, and I wish I could answer that question, but for whatever reason, and And I think probably because the estimating softwares, they're probably as unsure how to go about this as we are. But for whatever reason, they have probably been the quietest people. Like I said, most, probably the first 10 times that I taught the Ford F-150 class, at least half of the people in those classes were insurers. And, you know, the other half was collision repairs. But I have not had any questions, calls. I've not seen any emails. I've not seen any press releases. There was no talk about it at NACE, SEMA, or any of the other industry meetings. None of the estimating software companies have done anything. The only thing that I know is I have talked to some people that have done some repairs on the 2015 F-150, and they said the times are different. They said they were reasonably impressed by the amount of time for doing the repairs, replacement items, but there has not, to my knowledge, has not been any formal press releases about time studies or how they came about those times, and I really do not understand why they have not already put together something that is aluminum intensive. But I guess they're taking it vehicle by vehicle. You know, the F-150, the Range Rover, they're looking at it vehicle by vehicle, so apparently they don't feel, just like they don't generate the profiles for the insurance companies, I guess they don't feel it necessary to build a profile for an aluminum vehicle. But you have the tools to do it there. You know, it is within your software, and you do have the ability to do that yourself.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think that might be it. Again, we'll send you Tony's information, so if you do have questions, he can follow up with you. And that concludes the webinar today. If you have any suggestions on future webinars, please send them our way, and we'll be in touch with upcoming training opportunities. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Thank you.